Hi and welcome to the Tank Diaries, another episode in the series we're doing. Today we've got with us Andrew Ward from Reward I.T. He's going to be talking to us about his journey so far. So Andrew, thank you very much for coming along today.
You're welcome, thanks for asking.
No, it's a pleasure having you here. So you've had the business for, is it 3 years now?
Yeah, since late 2014.
Late 2014, okay, so you're engine up for 3 years. Mm-hmm. So why did you make the decision to take that jump?
I think there's a couple of reasons. I think from a personal reason, I wanted to be more of the master of my own destiny. That doesn't sound too grand.
Master of the universe.
Master of the universe, yeah. I mean, master of the universe would be nice, but probably a long way off yet. I kind of wanted to be responsible for what I did. I wanted to be kind of in control of where things went. It's nice when you work for yourself to be able to have that flexibility around school times and holidays and issues with the kids and family generally. So there was that. From a professional point of view, I wanted to do a better job than our competitors now and other people in the industry were doing. So it was two reasons. I wanted to improve our home life, and I wanted to provide a better service to people.
Okay, so I understand why you wanted to have your own business, but how do you go about actually making that jump? Because, you know, as I said, family relying, you know, all the rest of it. Do you look at funding, you know, saving up the money yourself? Did you already have people that were willing to sort of work with you from day dot? So you know, how did you make that jump?
I think the big thing for most people when they start their own business is purely the finances. So it's the being able to protect your income and start the business. The business that we're in doesn't need a lot of money to start. You need a little bit of equipment, but it's equipment that most people have got at home anyway. So for me, the plan was to start my own business. So it's about kind of being sensible financially and saving money and having a bit of a buffer behind you, so that you can afford to support yourself. Because you know, very few businesses start making money straight away. Certainly enough money to pay you. I was fortunate. I was in a reasonably well-paid job. So we just kind of had a period of time where, as a family, we just kind of saved like mad, really, I guess, and had a little bit of capital behind us, and just started. And you know, we've been in a fortunate position that from the first month onwards, the business has been profitable. We've never lost money on a monthly basis, but we haven't been in a situation to pay ourselves loads of money. And having that buffer behind you and having that expectation, and a lot of it comes down to the kind of support that you get from home. It was very much a decision that my wife and I made together. So I think it's really easy it's easier, when you've got somebody on board who can kind of help and is kind of on the same page as you.
Yeah, it's a common theme that keeps coming up, having a partner that's behind you all the way.
Yeah, I think my wife would have got pretty fed up quite quickly had she not wanted me to do it. I think she would have got fed up with the long hours and the no money fairly quickly, but she was keen for us to do it, and I'm really lucky because she's involved in the business and she works with us, and she's always been very helpful. And from an emotional point of view, but also logistically as well, she kind of runs around doing bits and pieces when we need stuff doing. But more importantly than that, she's been very supportive, and actually even to, you know, my children are quite young, but even the kids from a very early stage in the business were aware that things were going to be different.
Yeah.
And my middle child, Amelia, was kind of 6 at the time, and she was acutely aware that things needed to change and that we weren't going to be able to go out and spend the money that we were before.
Yeah.
But I think that it sounds a little bit business booky, and I don't mean it to, but I think the finance thing from your income perspective is actually less important than people realise. I think looking back now, it's a friend of mine years ago said that you just kind of find that when you're running your business or when you've got kids or whatever, that if you're going in the right direction, things just kind of work. And I think provided you've got a rough plan in place, that things will just fall into place, providing you know roughly where the benchmarks are, how much realistically you're going to be able to pay yourself, how long you can go without being, you know, earning a decent salary. And that's kind of the approach that we took to it, so that we had some money in the bank. This is where we thought we were going to be in 6 months' time, and we kind of went for it, and that's where we ended up. And I think that before I started, I spent a lot of time thinking about how I was going to have the income that I had on this day when I started working for myself, but actually I didn't need that.
So I suppose there's a lot of self-control that goes into it, because it's very easy for people in businesses that they get a really bumper month and then they go out and do something silly with the money, and then, you know, I suppose if you're structured well and you've got you've actually sort of agreed at home what you need to live on and what you need to be taking, and you don't take any more than that, then the business has a higher chance of success because you're building up more of a buffer behind it.
Yeah, absolutely. And you know, business finance works exactly the same way as home finance does, and in turn works exactly the same as government finance does. It's about
government finance works, does it?
the methods behind it are such that you shouldn't really be spending more than you're taking in, and that works. Basic economics is the same whether it's a business, a government, or your home finances. You know, we knew how much we were spending as a household, and we knew how much we had to spend, and there's a difference there. And the stuff that you don't have to spend, you don't spend. And as I say, I'm in a fortunate position because I've had that support and I had a little bit of money in the bank. But also, I think if you work out, you know, use easy maths. If you need to pay yourselves £100 a month to survive, pay yourselves £100 a month, almost regardless of how much you've got in the account, the business account, because you know you may have £10,000, you may have £1 million in the bank, but if you don't need to pay yourself in those early stages, don't, and stick to the plan and keep investing that money into growing the business in whatever form that may be. Because you're exactly right. There's lots of people who I know who work for themselves who will pay themselves £100 one week, £600 the next week, £10,000 the next month, whatever. It's too reliant on how much work they're doing, and that doesn't do your home finances any good. It definitely doesn't do your business finances any good because it's kind of up and down. I think for me, it's about budgeting and sticking to a plan. And that's what's worked for us so far.
So you've obviously mentioned that, you know, looking at how other people have done it out there. Have you always been acutely aware of how other people have been running businesses even before you ran your own?
Yeah, I was aware of how people were running their businesses when I was working for other people, and I'm really fortunate. I mean, I've worked for some people who aren't particularly good at running businesses, and I've worked for some people who are very good at running businesses, and a lot of the financial kind of methods that I use and inspiration comes from a particular finance director that I used to work for, who knew everything about the business, knew where every nut and bolt was, knew where every pound and penny was in the business, and was really good at kind of making plans and sticking to them. And so that's kind of where I draw on that from, and I think that's the best way of doing it, is to, before you work for yourself, to see what works for other people, because while you're doing it for yourself, it's kind of too late to, you can't start working for yourself and then think, oh, what am I going to do now? So that I think that's quite cool. That's really good to take the positives from people that you know. You don't have to work for them, it's people you know. So take those positives, but also look at things that people are doing that maybe aren't quite so good, and think, I'm never going to do that.
Sounds like there's a few things sort of coming to mind from over the years.
Maybe.
I think we've all seen that in different businesses. When you stand on the outside looking in, and you think, this person looks like, they're acting like they've made it, and actually it's still very early stages, and you know they're being a bit too cavalier, which can obviously cripple businesses. There's lots of famous stories out there where people have done that, you know, growing too fast, overspending, etc., etc.
But not even that. I mean, even some very successful businesses. I mean, I've worked for and I've worked around businesses that have, you know, been going a long time, lots of money in the bank, lots of staff, very successful, but that doesn't always then translate into the behaviour. And I think that even for a business that's very successful, you can take negatives from. You know, even about how you treat your staff, about how you treat your customers, about how you try to project your image to the outside world, you know, whatever it may be. I think there's always lessons to be learned. And there's plenty of new businesses that start, and you know, straight away you get somebody who thinks they're Bill Gates and sort of throwing money around and driving around in cars they can't afford and all the rest of it. And that's fine, but that's very different as well. You know, there's somebody who may have had a business for 25 years, multi-millionaire, but you can still look at things that they do and think, well, actually, I don't quite know why you're behaving like that. That's not something that I would ever want to do. And I think that's just as valuable as taking a positive from that solution. I know that some of the interactions that I have with people with my business, I avoid doing things that people have done to me or I've seen them do to other people, even very successful people. And you make a mental note not to do that.
Yeah. Well, I suppose the other thing is we're all human. We go through changes in our life. The way a 23-year-old, a 33-year-old, and a 43-year-old will spend money is very, very different. We have different pressures on us. We have, you know, different things we want out of life at different stages. We have different priorities. And I suppose it does depend on the person and what stage of their life they're going through those changes. I can always understand why somebody who's 21, 22 builds a business and then starts treating themselves to luxurious items, forgetting that actually, or forgetting about the fact that, you know, somebody who was maybe 20 years down the line with a little bit more experience behind them would go, well, treating myself to a really flash car, turning up in front of the client, in front of my staff who are asking for pay rises and saying, no, we can't afford it, and you just bought yourself something ridiculous that you're parking out the front, is just going to, you know, on an emotional and psychological side, is just going to do damage. And so, yeah, it's very easy to see why people, you know, make these mistakes along the way. But so 3 years in, mistakes. You know, have you made many along the way, or have you actually? I suppose you had a lot of experience in an industry. You haven't wandered into a whole new project. You've come from the IT industry, and now you've built a business, and you're just controlling it your way. It's not like you've gone out. We had Mark Cribben a few weeks ago, and he was you know, went out. He had been in hospitality for a long time, but he, you know, went out and bought a B&B, which is a little bit different between being paid to do a job and then having to live and breathe it 7 days a week. So has your business sort of organically grown with mitigating a lot of risk? Yeah,
it has. I mean, we're quite fortunate because we've never had to borrow money. So the business has never had any debt from day one, other than, you know, a couple of £100 that it took to start the business up. But mistakes, I think everybody makes mistakes. I made a mistake yesterday. In fact, I probably made a couple today. And you know, for me, it's about learning from those mistakes. I did a proposal for a customer recently, and I allowed the customer to kind of talk me into leaving something out of the proposal inadvertently. The guy didn't do it on purpose, but I kind of omitted something that I would normally put in the proposal. And then the feedback I got when we didn't win the project was that the thing that I left out was something that he would have quite liked. So that's kind of something that, you know, 3 years down the line, that's a mistake, and we sort of move on. And that's then prompted me to look at how we make sure that our proposals are as good as they can be. So we're in the process at the moment of redesigning our proposal to make sure that the content that he felt was lacking or missing is included for next time. So yeah, I mean, I think that part of being successful generally in life, whether it's business or being a parent or being a husband or a friend or whatever, is accepting that you are always going to make mistakes, and moving on from that. I probably make a mistake every day, but I just try not to make the same mistake.
Yeah, that's fair enough.
And again, that's what I would ask from staff as well, people who work for me or with me. I would never allow myself to get too excitable if somebody makes a mistake, but I think if someone makes the same mistake over and over again, you need to look at why that's happening. But I think mistakes are healthy. I think mistakes are good for business and for you individually.
Yeah, I suppose it's probably even more. It's probably even easier for people to, you know, be a little bit more, as I mentioned earlier, cavalier with their approach if they constantly find themselves being successful, not making mistakes, and just assuming that's always going to continue. You know, being sort of smacked down occasionally probably actually does your does your ego a lot of good.
Yeah, definitely. And also with, you know, again, it's not just in business, but in life generally, lots of things happen just because they happen. You know, some people are lucky, some people are unlucky, and that's kind of just the way it goes. And I think there's a tendency sometimes to think, sometimes you may have a lucky year, a lucky month, a lucky day, and I think that sometimes if you're not careful, you convince yourself that it's happened because of you, and sometimes that isn't always the case. And I think that when you get to that position, when you start to think that it's you making all the luck, you kind of you sort of feel a bit infallible.
Yeah.
And that's something that I'm really conscious to do. I'm always trying to learn, particularly from mistakes, but just generally I try to learn from stuff.
No, that is fair comment. It's something that's coming up quite a lot, and when we're having these discussions, is entrepreneurs, business owners, you know, with the right mentality, who are not money focused, seem far happier to ask for help, to make mistakes and to not let it really get them down, and just see it as a learning curve to actually doing things better next time, as opposed to beating themselves up. So you talked about your competitors in the market, and there's things that they do and they don't do that you like or dislike, or you wanted to change and make your business offer it. Was there anything particular? Because I suppose the sort of running joke about IT support is you get people, you spend a lot of money on somebody, phone them up, and they ask you to turn it off and turn it back on again.
Yeah, normally it does normally work though. To be fair. Do that a lot.
Okay, I can't
Top
really.
Tip.
I kind of walked into that one, didn't I? So no, but what sort of stuff did you see in your industry? Because I know that people commonly complain about, you know, calling up an IT support company that their business is paying a retainer for, and then them taking forever to get back to them, or when they speak to them, they get frustrated, because that person assumes they know a lot more about computers than they actually do. That's why they've got the IT support in the first place. So what sort of common issues did you see in your industry that you thought, I'm going to tackle these?
I think with IT, most businesses, I think, can continue to do better by just trying to be better. And I know that sounds a bit obvious, but I'm and the same with my suppliers as well. I see lots of people who look like they're going out of their way not to do a good job. And I think sometimes you just put a little bit of effort into doing a good job, it goes a long way. Because again, I've got suppliers who frankly aren't very good, but if they're nice with it and kind of...
Do you think any of them are watching?
look like they're trying hard, it kind of... It's sort of okay, you can work with that. But there's plenty of people who you come across who just look like they don't care. So I think specifically with IT, what we see is that in our space, you get two types of IT company. You get IT companies that are big enough to have sales staff, and you get IT companies who are basically just people who live in basements and never see sunlight. And what we see a lot is you have an IT company and they send a sales guy out, and the sales guy will be really good and really nice and be able to talk to you. And then as soon as you sign on the dotted line, you get the techie guys out who aren't able to converse in language that people understand. And that isn't a criticism of them individually, but I think for us, we found a bit of a space in the market where we go out of our way to try and explain things properly.
Yeah.
And, looking after somebody's IT is a big thing. Everybody knows how important IT is to their business.
And becoming
more
increasingly
Absolutely.
important.
And it will continue to do so to the point where, it will be literally everything, perhaps. And there's lots of business owners that I deal with now who are very interested in what's gone wrong, what can go wrong, what can we do to mitigate risk, all of those kind of things. And you have to be able to explain it to them in a way that they understand, or it makes them more anxious. Because it makes my life easier, because if they're happy that I'm doing a good job, it's easier for me, because I don't have somebody asking me questions. So explaining something well, I think, is really important. But also with the technical staff, if you send somebody out to fix a problem, if somebody wants to know what the issue was, there's a reason why they want to know, and that may be because they want to stop it happening again. They're worried about the impact on their business. They're worried about the risk. All these kind of things where IT can kind of come back and cause you some real problems. And it's important that the person fixing the product or fixing the issue can explain to them in a way that they understand what the problem is and how they can stop it happening again. So we go out of our way to make sure that we're explaining things properly.
Yeah.
We got staff who are really, really good at explaining it. And if they can't explain it properly, we have procedures in place to kind of escalate that to make sure the customer's happy before we finish. So it's about it's sort of hand-holding, it's sort of just basic courtesy. It's explaining what you've done, explaining what you're going to do and why you're going to do it and the possible impacts on the business and the things as well. So I think that's really important, but it's just, in my opinion, the thing that we do that's different, that's kind of done us the best service is just trying to do the best that we can. And for our business, we don't tie people into contracts at all, and lots of people really like that. Most of our customers have been with us for a long time, and that's great. And in my opinion, the reason that people stay with us is because we do a good job for them, not because they're signed into a contract.
Yeah.
So the contract to one side can, put that to one side. The issue is for our, or the benefit really to our customers is that if we don't have somebody tied into a contract, we're just going to do a good job to try and keep them. A, because that's what we want to do, but B, because we want to keep the customer happy.
You've got a relationship built on trust and respect.
Absolutely, and it works really well. And there's lots and lots of IT companies, lots of IT support companies who all of their effort seems to be about getting people to sign a contract, whereas all of our effort is on getting our customers to stay with us. And I think it sounds really obvious, but that's in my opinion, a real difference.
I think one of the points you made, which kind of resonated with me, is the layman's term, because I am not an IT person in a big way. I mean, obviously, I use computers every day for my work, but I do get more and more worried. There's more stories in the press about crypto locker and things like this, all these different viruses, and it seems to be getting worse. I think we now have a younger and younger demographic of people, or not demographic, a younger and younger range of people who have very advanced skills, and unfortunately the wrong ones getting bored means they just go out and cause havoc with other people's systems. And what they don't see, and when that does happen, is businesses like ours who suffer incredibly through loss of time, loss of earnings, etc., etc. Being a layman when it comes to IT, what's the best way to sort of protect myself moving forward?
It's a very difficult question to answer in a kind of a succinct way. Every business is different. Every business has different systems and different challenges and different kind of ways that it uses IT, it utilises IT to achieve its objectives. I think that if I had to just pick one thing, it's a good backup. I think if you've got a good backup of your data, it doesn't really matter what happens. Eventually, you're going to be okay. You're going to go through some pain, but you're not. It's not going to be terminal.
Yeah.
I think the people who really suffer are the people who experience these issues and have got no way back from it. So, some kind of encryption virus is a really good example where if all of your data becomes encrypted, so you can't access it, and you've got somebody asking you for Bitcoin as a ransom. Pay it if you like. The chances are you're not going to get your files back anyway. You may do. Some people I know have, but it can be really expensive. But assuming that you're not going to be able to get that data back, if you don't have a backup, you've lost all of your data. You're in a lot of trouble. And there's lots of different ways of backing data up. The challenge comes because now to do it properly is very expensive. Most people want off-site backup, so cloud storage backup, so an online backup solution. And businesses, as their data set grows, as the amount of data they produce increases, the amount of staff they have increases, it's really expensive to back it up properly. But there are some inexpensive ways to do it that are better than nothing at all. But it's really about looking at the business, the location, the internet connection, the number of staff, the amount of data. So look at backup, but also looking at intrusion prevention as well. So things like hardware firewalls, making sure computers have got decent antivirus. The number of people that we still see that as a new customer that we go into and we carry out an audit for them who don't have any kind of antivirus running at all on their computers. We have lots of people who use Mac who think that Macs don't get virus, for example, and they do. And so it depends on the business. We've got some customers who have got hardware firewalls, have got software filters, have got antivirus, have got multi-layer backup solutions that we put in place for them. We've got disaster recovery, we've got off-site servers replicating. There's all sorts of things that we can do, right down to people using Dropbox. And if you do it properly, you can use Dropbox and protect yourself to a degree that's acceptable. But it just depends on the business. Because a one-man band working out of his mum's garage is going to have much different needs to a company that employs 300 people.
Of course.
I think if I had to pick one thing, it'd be data backup. If you've got a copy of your data, you'll be all right in the end.
Yeah, I mean, we've obviously gone off subject a little bit from talking about the growth in your journey, but I was interested because I think...
Trying to get some free advice, basically.
Yeah, basically. Trying to give everyone else some free advice as well. No, I'm actually, honestly, it came up in the last 2 days. Somebody came to me, they'd had a big problem with hacking, and it's only when it's close to home and then you see the cost implication of what that person's going through, or that business is going through and having to deal with, that you suddenly go, if your system goes down and you had to start from scratch, the cost could be astronomical.